All right, that's our first layer. So now, I like the lightness of the sky. I need this darker though, so what I'm gonna do is go into that mix with a little Payne's Gray. And I'm just mixing this all together. A little ultramarine blue. And let's see what we've got. Okay, I like that better. So now I'm not gonna pre-wet this. I'm just gonna go right in along the horizon line with a wash. Let's try to get that same dry brush effect here. Okay. Okay, that's better. Now that I like better. This looks much more natural with this. And of course, always, I'm gonna bring some of that down in here. Just loosely. The darker part of the wave. And now I need some contrast here. I'm gonna add more green or make this a little greener right here. Just to differentiate this wave from the other wave in the background. Okay, like that. And this is it as well, right here. Where does that wave start? That wave comes all the way down here, okay, into here. And these are cresting over these waves, so we don't want them too flat. We want them to have a little movement. Okay, and I like that. Now we're just going to trail this off down here. And this is going to be lighter because that's the leading edge of the wave. So I'm just going to drop some lighter color right in here and back up in here. And this is still very wet. This is still wet on wet. And we are still trying to create the illusion of the light coming through the thin, the very top of the wave, the water is thinner. So, see how I'm just making the strokes go how I want them to look like the actual waves are going. I'm gonna let all this blend together. I'm going up and touching every bit of this because this is all water. Okay. All right. And remember, if I get too heavy, I can always spritz it. And when it puddles down at the bottom of the board, which it will do, I can always pick it up with a thirsty brush because it will just fill right back in. And this is how we get the illusion of the water actually moving. We've got a hard edge catching there. Let's do that again. All this is flowing together, so great part of this is you really can't mess this up. Okay, you just keep letting it go, letting it go. These come this way, so we want that movement that way. We want these coming this way, and we want this coming down like this. Okay. And I'll just continue doing this until it gets dark enough. All right, so And I'm doing this very wet. This is very, very wet. But again, you are painting water, so just remember. Water doesn't have hard edges. Okay. All right, so I'm kind of liking that. I'm even liking this. What's happening here? Okay. All right, so that'll be our second layer. And I always build these things very gradually. I don't do them, especially when I'm painting something like this, I won't do it in a strong manner. I'll just let it keep evolving. This is a great practice in wet on wet painting. It's really good to know how to do this. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's try that. All right, I'm really liking these darks that we're getting in here. So we will just keep building. And we fade it out here again. But understand that if I were doing if this weren't a demo for beginners, I would push these colors much more darker. But because this is beginners, I like for it to be a gentle. That's some more ultramarine blue. Let's make that a little bit bluer. I like it to be a gentle transition for you guys. Let's try doing that dry brush across there. That's better. All right, so if I wanted to lift out some little wavelets in the back there, I could take my paper towel and twist it and just, well, if I do it properly, okay, so if I wanted to do some little waves in the background there, I could take a synthetic brush and just lift up some waves. I'm liking this dark line right here. I need that line to be dark. So I could just lighten this. I can put in some little wavelets up in there if I want to. All right, this time I'm gonna let this dry. All right. So now we're going in. Let's try this synthetic brush. Let's work on this wave back here a little bit. And we want a slight differentiation between this and this. This is going to be darker, so I don't want this to be too dark, but I do want it to be greener. So just going to drop that in like this. Just touching that line that I just made there. And then I'm just going to roll some of this down here, like this, just to start giving us these nice little wavelets that are happening with our happening with our actual wave here. And this will all be, the edge of this will all be covered up with gouache, so don't worry about that. And these trail off like this. So the key to this, these little wavelets, is to just Let them kind of go as if they would right in here. And in the meantime, we're going to go back in here because this is a crashing wave. So it is building like this. So we just want to give this impression. And as it comes down, if you study waves, you'll see that. Another thing you can do to make these little wavelets is to just do it with clear water, and then the paint will follow. So let's go back into the eye of the wave up under here. We have this eye coming in here. And then we're going to mix it in with some darker colors. This, you really don't have to be very precise here. As long as you get the movement of the wave, that's what counts. And that's just dry brush right there. We really want to get that movement there. Okay. And if all this gets too heavy, all you have to do is spritz it. And I love spritzing water like this because it does give it a much more organic look. And then you can just control how that goes. And because it is water, of course, it helps the look of water. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so we need to move that a little bit right there. And when you spray this, hold yourself back. Don't get real close to what you're spraying, because if you do, it's going to end up just washing away all the paint. So this is how we get those pretty little rivulets. And see, I think that's just beautiful. Okay. And anybody can do this. That's the great part of this, is that really anyone can do this. And this is all going to be covered with white gouache, so we're not too worried about that. Right now we're just getting the underlying texture of it. See if we can get that to drip off. Every time you wipe it away, it just migrates on down. And I'm painting on at least a 35-degree angle here, because it really helps you get the look you want. So if I want to go back in and do even more here, let's say I wanted to put some dark wavelets kind of in here just with the tip of my brush. I can go back in and do that. Just don't be too precise. That's the key here. And don't be too don't try too hard to control these things. It really works better if you don't try to control them. And if I don't want it to go that way anymore, I can turn it this way and let them come back that way. The other thing I can do is just draw. Like I said, I can use clean water and just let them flow that way. And that way you're helping it move is what you're doing, basically, there. Okay, so I'm liking that. That might be a little harsh. We'll decide as we go. So if I want this definite movement here in these waves, I can do the same thing. just to indicate that these are coming down this way. Using the side of your brush, touching the edge. See, I like that. Coming this way, making those definite movement. You can overdo this too. We're getting to that point where we're probably starting to overdo this, but that's okay. We're just playing anyway. Now I'm just making some more those wavelets we lost. Got a nice thing happening over here, kind of like this. That's interesting. What's going on there? So you just have to work with the water and with the color. Now up at the very edge of this wave, underneath this turn, is going to be very dark. It's always very dark underneath where the wave is breaking. So let's put a little dark up under there, under that leading edge. Let that wash on down. And we'll let you come this way. Just give it a outlet here. And you see I'm putting a lot of this in, but remember, a lot of this just gets washed away as the water comes down. So again, we'll hit it with a mister to soften that. Anytime you get a hard line like that, that's all you have to do. I would rather you overwash this than underwash it, than leave hard lines. Because on these boards, you can just keep doing this as long as you want. That's what's so great about these boards. Because you can just keep doing it. You can also encourage these little water lines to move if you want to. And it is difficult to build up a color on these boards sometimes. So it's almost easier if you get some good color to just leave it and stop and dry it. Then it'll be less likely to wash away when you get what you want. Now I'm just mixing up a dark, using the same colors, the phthalo blue, the ultramarine, and the Payne's gray. And see, when I get too much of a blue, I'll just add a little lemon yellow. And pull it right back to where I want it. So mixing is just a matter of tweaking it until you get what you want. And you see how I'm letting it dry on this angle so that the waves are all coming this way. And I have another video on painting waves in the beginners playlist that actually uses masking fluid. But I don't think this class wanted to use masking fluid, so we're doing it this way. So I'll give you an alternative. You can either use masking fluid or you can just use gouache at the end. Really, it's a matter of preference. All right. Now we're going to run this dark line again. Under the wave, the edge of the wave. And since it's so wet, it's going to bleed out. If you want to get better at painting the ocean, just go out and watch the ocean and watch how the waves break, watch how it forms the basic shape of the wave. And pretty soon you'll see. All right, I'm just dropping these in just to give the suggestion of movement. And because it's wet, they're just going to bleed out. And I'm just using the very tip of this brush. Okay. Ooh, I'm liking that. All right. So I feel like we need to change the color of this a little bit more. So I think I may go in with a little bit more of a blue mixture just to make a variation between these. I don't want it too blue, but maybe just in some of these places here. Let that bleed on down just to give the illusion. Okay. And if it's not moving as much as you want it to, if I just go in with clean water and touch any of these places, I'll get a blend it all together. See, blends. That's just clean water. And now we've got some nice variation in that wave in the back, which is good. And we'll let it bleed on down. I do want that line right there because that will remind you to put your white foam in there. Okay. All right. I'm liking this. All right, that's probably too much what I did there. You can see how it's much more defined than I want it to be. So really painting is just about tweaking. It's painting and then tweaking what you've done, and then, you know. So I can either go in with darker color there and a smaller brush, or I can do that white, or I can just blend that out. So I think what I'm gonna do is go in with a little that darker mixture. And let's see what happens if we just hit the underneath of this wave a little bit. To give us kind of a sense that we have a few little wavelets back in there. And you can not do this. You could leave it solid if you want. It's up to you. I kind of like that. And then as waves come closer, they get bigger. And as they are in the background, they get smaller. That one's too big. Kind of like that. And then what we'll do is we'll go over the top of those with some gouache, and then we'll soften the bottom of some of this so it's not so harsh. Some of these. Anywhere that it's harsh and you don't want it to be that harsh, just hit the bottom of it and it'll all bleed out. Let's just do that with everything so it's not so harsh. That's better. I like that better. Okay, so see, that's the great thing about watercolor. You can just do it and then you can just undo it. That looks a lot better to me. So just a suggestion that there might be something going on back there. Okay, all right. Now if I want to lift some highlights out of the waves, I can take a clean brush and I can lift some highlights. This probably works better with a flat brush. Let's try that with a flat brush. So if I wanted the illusion of just a highlight on that top of that wave, or maybe I wanted a highlight here, or maybe I just want a guideline for my gouache. I can do this. Just cleaning my brush as I go. See, I can just leave little highlights here. And a flat brush works better for this. So we're just kind of giving them a suggestion here of some whites coming in here. This is where we know our foam is going to be. Just don't overdo this. It's easy to overdo all these techniques, okay? Because right now we're just trying to get the basic. There we go. Now that I'm liking. Now we need to come back in here again and give this just the suggestion that some of these are rolling over. Okay, that's enough. So see, you can do lots of different techniques here to get the look that you want. You just have to keep practicing. And try not to make these all symmetrical. I've made those way too similar. All right, so we're gonna stop there, and then I think we're just gonna add our gouache and tweak anything else that we need to tweak. I like that this is darker here. I like that this is lighter here. We could actually do another coat there, but I think at this point that's fine. So let's stop it here and then we'll add the gouache.